AITA for refusing to get my in-laws anything for Christmas. To prove a point to my husband. Been together 9 years. 29f/30 meters. Have 2 kids. I absolutely adore my in-laws. They are fantastic people and I get along with them swimmingly. My family is far from perfect and raised me in a very toxic environment, so having positive people like my in-laws in my life has been a godsend. However, because my husband knows how toxic my family was when I was growing up, he refuses to include them in anything. This is the only downfall in our marriage. They have never done him wrong or done myself wrong for years either, but he doesn't give a shit, just completely disregards that they even exist. We get his family something for Christmas every year, as well as spending the even day with them every year. Mine is lucky to get a Merry Christmas text. Now, my sister is almost 18 and just found out she is pregnant. She's against abortion and did use a condom, which obviously broke. She lives with her BFS parents who have made both her and her BFS lives a complete hell since finding out. My sister and her BF both worked part-time and went to school, but after his parents found out they were pregnant, made their son drop out of school and get a full-time job. He was 4 months from getting all credits to graduate. They also upped their rent from $400 a month to $800 a month, even though their rent is only $950 for a 6-bedroom house and they can't use any of the spare rooms. Plus they have to buy their own food, pay the internet and electric bill, not included in their rent, can't take showers all but once a week to save on water, and basically are limited to their bedroom. They practically have to ask to take a piss. They have even deliberately made my sister feel like shit by saying they won't be carting her ass around to any appointments for free. Knowing this info, I wanted to get her something for the baby. Knowing that there was no way in hell they could afford one living under her BFS parents' roof, I wanted to buy her a crib. The same one I had for my kid is the one that changes into a toddler bed and then a day bed. It grows with the baby. She could use it for years. It was only $199 on sale. I purchased mine for $699. So I told my husband I wanted to buy it and he lost his shit, said that he wasn't going to break the bank to support her child having a child, and said she decided to have a baby she can go get a job and buy a crib. It's not my job to give her gifts. Mind you, I work full time, more hours than him by a long shot, but he works salary and technically makes more. I was livid, I'll admit, and immediately snapped back with, well, looks like we will be crossing mommy and daddy off the Christmas list because they have jobs and can buy their own gifts. Since that conversation I have held the same tune, though he claims this is entirely different and that I'm an awful trying to compare the two. Christmas gifts/baby gifts. AITA info. Is there a way to help your sister and her boyfriend find a place to rent of their own? If they are paying $800+ a month to his parents, maybe they can afford something else and then not have to deal with his parents. Made their son drop out of school and get a full-time job. He was 4 months from getting all credits to graduate. They also upped their rent from $400 a month to $800 a month, even though their rent is only $950 for a 6-bedroom house and they can't use any of the spare rooms. Plus they have to buy their own food, pay the internet and electric bill, not included in their rent, can't take showers all but once a week to save on water, and basically are limited to their bedroom. Seriously, WTF is up with those parents? Are some of these conditions even legal? They need to get the hell out of there. I think everyone in this situation is toxic besides the sister, the boyfriend and Opus. NTA. I'm surprised I had to scroll so far to find someone talking about this. The sister's living situation is what stood out to me here. That's seriously messed up. NTA. As it turns out, you don't need your husband's permission to buy your sister this very thoughtful, useful gift. You work full time, so you can afford it yourself. Your husband is being really shitty and completely unreasonable about this. Talk about toxic. See, I have brought that up and told him that while he claims to hate my toxic family, has being pretty toxic himself, and his response is no, I'm not being toxic. I'm setting boundaries. There is a huge difference. Apostrophe. He's setting a boundary about what you can do with your money for your sister. There is no way this is about him having a grudge against your family. If he was really against people being treated wrongly, he'd want to help your sister. This is about him being selfish and controlling. NTA. NTA. Even if he hadn't had a history with your parents and ignoring your side of the family, this is awful. Why would he be such a jerk to your sister? Will you never be able to buy her anything? He sounds like a complete jerk. I totally get the point you're trying to make. And this has zero to do with your family being toxic. Does he alienate you from your friends toward just your family? Well, I mean, I haven't hung out with anyone in 4 years, but I'm a mom though. Sometimes it does come with the territory, so I wouldn't blame him for that. Hey Opus. My friend had a couple kids and her husband used to text me and set up playdates with me for his wife. Just days where he'd come home and be like, surprise, I'm taking over everything in the house. Go out and play with your friend. Sometimes he'd set up spa days if he could afford it. Sometimes we'd just go get a couple drinks and then go dancing. That's the new threshold for what a good man does. AWW. That's really sweet. My best friend's husband is like that. She's a big introvert and really likes spending time alone. So sometimes he'll book her a night or weekend at a luxury hotel in town that has an award-winning restaurant attached to it and a full spa. She can go eat, have cocktails, get a massage, stay in a bathrobe all weekend and barely have to talk to anyone. It honestly sounds like a dream. NTA. He is off his judgmental rocker. Also, your sister needs to start with a social worker and get general assistance. While she's a minor, there is other assistance she can get for herself and baby. I mean, I can see why he hates Op's parents. Their oldest clearly has been hurt by them in the past and still currently their 17-year-old child is pregnant and not being taken care of, living at her boyfriend's parents' home being bullied. But I can't see any reason such resentment and anger is directed at the sister. She's 11 years younger than Op and was only 7 when Op was 18. What did she do as a kid to warrant such coldness? NTA. I think you should ignore your husband and buy your sister a crib. Then I think you need to ignore the devil on your shoulder and select gifts for your in-laws. If purchasing gifts for family is a task you usually do, then do it and tell him to butt out. You are eventually going to have this fight. Stick to your guns. Do the right thing and go ahead and have it. Oh dear. NTA. Is it possible you jumped from one toxic family to another? Because your husband does not sound great here. NTA. It's not your husband's place to dictate your relationship with your family. If you want to cut them off, fine. And if you want them in your life, also fine. His role should be to support whatever decision you make, especially since they haven't done anything to him. He's being controlling and needs to own up to the fact that if this small gesture is important to you, it should be important to him. I'm shocked I have to ask this, but why do you need your husband's permission to spend money, especially such a relatively low amount? NTA. Buy the crib. NTA. There's boundaries, and there's controlling behavior. This falls into the latter. If your husband claims to hate your family so much, why is he so against helping your sister? She's a kid, and she was raised in that toxic environment too. If he's so protective and family oriented, where is this coming from? The answer you don't want. When you're isolated from your family, it's easier for him to maneuver your family into his vision of a perfect life. Holding his higher salary over your head is absolutely within the territory of financial abuse. It's not his money. It's not his bank account. That he thinks it is very, very concerning. If I were you, I'd be talking about counseling and maybe funneling a percentage of your earnings into a separate, secret bank account, just in case he decides to go nuclear and lock you out of anything joint. Alternatively, you said you had a good relationship with your in-laws, right? Maybe it's just me and my petty self, but it'd go talk to his mum, not to Dob, but to ask her for advice. Seeing as she knows and loves your husband and, hopefully, has a successful marriage herself. Tell her you feel lost, you don't know how to handle the situation, that you don't want to revoke presents BC you love gifting for them, lie through your teeth if you must, but you don't see any other way. Lay it on thick about how you're worried for your baby sister, and that your mill is the closest thing to a mother figure you have, and any advice would be so appreciated. Hopefully, she gives excellent advice, and maybe gives her son a dressing down. He can't exactly complain about you going to her, as the one who shut your mother out in the first place. I haven't read all the comments, so I'm going to add in my 2 cents. I think you're targeting and punishing the wrong people. You have a good relationship with your in-laws, and you care about them. They literally have zero to do with this situation. You shouldn't risk your relationship with them, because your husband is being an ass. So you would be tapped if you didn't get them a gift. You would not be wrong if you chose to not give your husband a gift, as he is being an ass and extremely judgmental. He has every right not to like your family. He has every right to not want a relationship with them. That is perfectly okay. What is not okay is him trying to decide what kind of relationship you have with your family. That is not up to him. That's only up to you. He needs to respect your needs and wishes regarding your relationship with your family. Otherwise, he's proving to be no better than them. Toxic. Blessed be. But if the in-laws are such great people, would them not receiving gifts for one Christmas really put this relationship at risk? If Op has a 4-year-old, then they have known other 4 years. Yeah. But they have nothing to do with the situation. They are good to Op and her family. Using them as leverage to get her husband to cave in probably isn't going to work, and just hurts them. NTA. She is going to need so much support. I can't imagine how terrified she is. Nightmare situation. Your sister was as impacted by your parents as you were. NTA. Weird he is using your family's past toxic behavior as an excuse to be toxic himself. It seems from your post you are in a better place with your family now, so I find it strange and also hurtful for you that he is so dismissive of them. Of course big purchases must be talked about, but if you have constantly spent money on gifts for his family for holidays over the years, it's ducked of him to not allow you to do the same. Also, your sister is not just sitting on her ass doing nothing. Her and her partner practically pay the rent for her partner's house and are in a very unsupportive environment. NTA. Something doesn't sit well with your husband. Does he lack empathy? Does he just want to control you? Is he just stingy? You can still support your sister and buy the crib. Maybe tell your in-laws why they're not getting a gift this year. Good luck. Nathan seconded the therapy advice. He might have good intentions, but one can't live with secondhand hatred for the rest of your life. He needs to work that out. NTA. You two could have communicated better, but he expects you to buy his family things while ignoring your own. The environment your parents created isn't the fault of your sister, and extending an olive branch and a helping hand to someone that needs it is entirely reasonable. Unfortunately, it looks as though you've subbed out your toxic family for a toxic husband. He's trying to control your money that you would spend on a very thoughtful gift. You're trying to break the cycle of abuse by helping your sister, and if your husband can't see that, then this isn't about cutting out toxic family members. He's just using that as an excuse. NTA. But you would be if you decide against the crib because your husband demands it. NTA. However, you need to sit down and have a talk with your husband. The way your husband treats your family is a direct outcome of what you have let him get away with. I think it is time for you to set up some boundaries and remind him that toxic or non-toxic, he should treat your family with minimal respect and not try to control your finances to this extent. NTA. But I don't see why you can't buy the crib for your sister and also buy gifts for your in-laws. You're punishing your in-laws and yourself since you really love your in-laws. When it's your husband you're at odds with. Your husband sounds really controlling. He should support you in how you want to deal with your parents and your sister. If he's mad at how your parents treated you, why is he talking it out on a minor? She's 17. Closed bracket comma. Teenage soon to be mother. Someone so vulnerable who needs your help. My family is far from perfect and raised me in a very toxic environment, so having positive people like my in-laws in my life has been a godsend. However, because my husband knows how toxic my family was when I was growing up, he refuses to include them in anything. This is the only downfall in our marriage. They have never done him wrong or done myself wrong for years either, but he doesn't give a shit. Just completely disregards that they even exist. So far I'm with your husband on this. They haven't wronged him, but they wronged someone he loves, so they are dead to him. That sounds more than fair. It also sounds supportive. So I told my husband I wanted to buy it, and he lost his shit. Said that he wasn't going to break the bank to support her child having a child, and said she decided to have a baby, she can go get a job and buy a crib. It's not my job to give her gifts. Apostrophe. But here's where he lost me. First of all, it's ridiculous to extend the duck your family attitude to your little sister considering her age. Even if she was part of the toxic environment you grew up in, it's not as though she had a choice. And odds are she was just another victim of it. And it sounds like she's dealing with awful parents on both sides of her relationship. So she doubly needs the support. I think your idea was very sweet. And your husband is being an asshole for being so judgmental. NTA. NTA. However, it sounds like at least some of this falls back on you letting your husband go this long just hating your whole family. It really shouldn't be up to him to make the plans that start including your family and things. Especially if they were less than stellar to you growing up. You say he doesn't include them, but don't make any mention of things you have done which include both him and them, so at first glance it just reads like you really haven't put the effort in there either. And so, it sounds like his only experience of your family is what you've shared with him about what things were like growing up, and absent anything new or redeeming, he is content to continue writing off people who were previously horrible to you. That being said, if your sister wasn't part of that, or if she was, and you want to actively start mending fences, you can't really expect him to lead the charge in that department before you yourself have started down that path. Or maybe your sister was equally as adversely affected by your family as you were, and you can make clear to him that she was another victim of the same horrible household dynamic. But instead of finding herself a part of a wonderful new family as you have, she just jumped from the frying pan to the fire. As for the family/gift angle, I mean, sure, it feels great in the moment to get that zinger in, but it sounds like his family and parents mean a fair deal to you, so something biting off your nose to spite your face. NTA. It is not your husband's job to hold grudges for you. It is his job to support you in how you want to handle them. I'm in the exact same situation as y'all. My wife had it rough growing up and has a complicated relationship with her parents and family. All I have ever done is be a sounding board and support her. My children are their grandchildren and I want a positive relationship. Sounds like your husband needs to step back and reevaluate his place in this dynamic. Side note, your sister and her BF should consider finding their own place. If his parents can rent a 6-bedroom house for $960, then they can surely find a place for less than $800 and get out of that toxic environment. NTA. My family is pretty ducking toxic, but they are my family and I get to choose what relationship I have with them, not my husband. I just spent $500 on my sister's 30th birthday present because it's a milestone and felt like the right thing to do. My husband obviously isn't a huge fan of my family because they treat me like shit, but he also doesn't try and control my personal relationships, no matter who they are with. Your husband needs to pull his head in. NTA. But don't be hard to yourself. If your husband understands the toxic family you came from, he should also support your sister who came from the same background. Your comment saying you haven't been able to see friends in 4 years makes this situation more concerning. If you come from a home with poor boundaries and lacking relationships, you need to make sure you protect yourself from replicating that environment. If you can afford therapy, you could examine how your upbringing has impacted your worldview and current relationship. Moms see their friends. Sisters are allowed to support one either. Good luck. I don't think this is an issue of your husband overreacting to a genuine problem, your toxic upbringing. I think your husband is controlling you and just genuinely doesn't give a crap about your family or what's important to you. NTA. But wait a minimum, I have questions. We see that your husband's logic is all over the place. So he despises your family for being toxic when you were living with them, right? So why does he despise your sister? If he's so passionate about this world and he want to help your sister, you both grew up in the same toxic environment and now your sister went from one toxic household to another. If he's so against abusing children to the point that he treats your family like garbage, then he would go out of his way for your sister. I don't think he really cares about your upbringing as much as you think he does. I don't think he would've treated your family much better than he is now if they were the perfect parents to you. I think all of this is about control, and quite honestly I think your husband may be a spoiled brat that always got his way. IDK maybe I'm reading into this too much, but what I think you should do is take a step back and really dissect the situation. Think about all of his interactions with your family, especially your sister. Did he treat your sister as bad as he did your parents? I think you may have a serious problem. Good luck. Since when is it unheard of to buy someone gifts for their new baby? Especially if that someone is your little sister? Your husband sounds like a complete jerk. Your sister is in a terrible situation, and if he can't sympathize with that and understand why you would want to help, duck him. He's the R, not you. NTA. I saw your comment about how you haven't hung out with anyone in 4 years, and then go on to say you're a mom, so that makes sense. No. It doesn't make sense. That is not normal. It is isolation. And now your husband wants to place a boundary between you and your sister. Has wiled you in and made it look like you now belong to a loving family instead of in a gilded cage. There is a lot more going on than your husband saying you shouldn't buy your sister a gift. And none of it is good. Between your income and what your sister and her BF are paying for living expenses, you guys should just get a nice place together to raise your children away from the toxic messes you're both currently entangled in. 3 parents, 2 children, and no micromanaging, controlling a shat, setting boundaries of what you can and cannot do. NTA, but please don't turn a blind eye to what is going on. First of all, NTA. Second of all, I don't want this to be harsh, but this is not okay of him. I came from a similar background. Super toxic and abusive family. If there was a bingo for red flags and therapy sessions, I probably could mark every card on my own. My fiance hates my maternal family, except my grandmother, but most especially my Egdona, and he let me decide for myself when I was done. Don't get me wrong, he was cheering from the sidelines for me to cut contact, but he was supportive of what I wanted. Her birthday was coming up. He helped me bake the cake. Christmas time has come. He invited her to our old home. Random family barbecue. He would come with me and enjoy the time, even if he disliked the company. And when my Egdona screwed me over for the last time, he didn't say, "I told you." So he welcomed me with open arms and comforted me. He let me decide for myself what my relationship with her was and when. Your husband can hate your family, but he shouldn't hate your sister for what she also presumably went through. And even if she was toxic at one point, he doesn't get to decide when you're allowed to forgive, who you're allowed to see, spend your money on, help out, etc. is not his boundary to lay. Seek a couples counselor if this is a resource available to you. It may take an outside perspective for him to understand how toxic he is being in the name of keeping you away from toxic people. Which BTW doesn't mean lobbing off everyone with a mild connection. Otherwise I'd never see my wonderful grandmother again. He's allowed to say, "I don't think this is a good idea for you," but his job as your partner is to support you and the relationships you wish to have with your family, regardless of whether he thinks they deserve you or not. If you enjoy watching these videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video. Thanks.